this is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so this episode marks the final fight against Reaper 2.0 and Yanagisawa, and it's quite the intense fight because it kind of showcases Korosensei learning how to adapt to fight an opponent twice as strong as him. But in addition to that, it's kind of a fitting end to the relationship between the Reaper and Korosensei, because as we've established, the Reaper was Korosensei's first student, and obviously that didn't work out very well. So yeah, as I said, it starts off with the fight between Korosensei and the Reaper after Korosensei gives his moving speech about how even when you run, the fight will eventually come for you. And at which point he and the Reaper proceed to fight, which causes sonic booms every time it hits. And while Nagisa and the other students can't really tell what exactly is going on in the fight, since obviously they're moving at Mach 20 and Mach 40 respectively, so it's kind of hard to keep track of what's going on. Nagisa can tell that Korosensei is losing. He can tell that Korosensei isn't able to keep up with the Reaper. And even laments that it's clear that's clear from this that the Reaper that all of their hard work was for nothing, because they were never going to be able to actually keep up with Korosensei anyway. Much less the Reaper, since they realize now that the Reaper is probably going to kill Korosensei, and there's not a damn thing that he can do about it. But as the Korosensei is getting his ass handed to him, he remembers the Reaper. He remembers his relationship with the Reaper, about how the Reaper had actually come to him, and shortly after Korosensei had killed his father. And asked him if to actually be like him and actually be taken under his wing, despite again the Korosensei killing his dad. And while Korosensei from that flashback remarks that he's only now realizes that the Reaper back then had. Long story short, the Reaper didn't really understand right from wrong, or didn't really care, but he had a sense of determination about him, and Korosensei is realizing too late that if he had fostered that determination, that the Reaper could have turned out different. But in any case, it quickly becomes apparent that Korosensei is completely outmatched, and Yanagisawa even gloats this, pointing out that while he admires Korosensei's determination and his willingness to actually hold on and continue to fight, that is kind of pointless, because the Reaper is clearly far superior to Korosensei in every way. Korosensei does stand up, pointing out that he realizes that the Reaper's outmatched, but he also points out that this is actually a fight between teacher and student, and that Yanagisawa has no right to be there, pointing out that it is a place of teaching and not a war zone. But Yanagisawa merely scoffs at Korosensei, pointing out that Korosensei is clearly far too dedicated to his task of being a teacher, and clearly dedicated to his facade of quote unquote pretending. But points out that there was a specific reason why he brought the Reaper to actually come and fight Korosensei now of all times. At which point he then snaps his fingers. At which point the Reaper then charges up an energy blast using his tentacles to try and attack the students. At which point Korosensei proceeds to shield it with his own body in order to protect them. And he keeps doing this over and over until Korosensei is battered and bruised. At which point Irina and Karasuma show up and see the situation and quickly realize that Korosensei is clearly outmatched, because he has no chance of actually facing against the Reaper, especially if as Karasuma puts it, Yanagisawa is so dedicated to getting his revenge until his target is completely obliterated, both mind, body, and soul. But in any case, after surviving several energy blasts from Reaper 2.0, Korosensei is now battered and bruised, and is now being restrained by the Reaper, who is now going to try and finish him off. At which point the students and Yanagisawa quickly realize something that they hadn't noticed all year, and something that Yanagisawa is now pointing out. That according to Yanagisawa, Class 3E is actually arguably Korosensei's biggest weakness, because as he points out, he's as his role as a teacher dictates, he will protect them over and over, and and is kind of dedicated to protecting them, and that can ultimately cause him to be opened up for an attack. But Korosensei completely rebuts this idea, pointing out that Korosensei is more than happy to defend his students because he's fostered their ability to learn over the past year, and that he couldn't ask for such a brighter group of students, and that he will happily protect them over as many times as it takes, to make sure that they can continue to live their lives and continue to actually become proper members of society. And he doesn't, and to that end, he is more than proud of them. And Yanagisawa is kind of a little perturbed at how preposterous that statement actually is. But before he can even get a word in edgewise, Kurasama actually pulls out a gun and tries to shoot Yanagisawa in the head, pointing out that he's had enough of him. But Yanagisawa merely uses his super speed to knock Kurasama out, and tells them to just simply watch the show because it's about to be over. But as the Reaper is about to finish off Korosensei, Kaede actually pulls out a gun and opens fire on the Reaper, which causes him to drop Korosensei. And everybody is quick to point out that that's a dumb idea, especially since the Reaper is able to move at Mach 40, and there's no way any normal human is able to actually keep up with that. But Kaede points out that she merely has to do this, and even explains that it was ultimately her fault that they had to embrace the truth, pointing out that up until that point they had been a happy little family, and she ruined it. And now she needs to actually make up for that mistake by more or less trying to face off against the Reaper so that Korosensei can recover. But Korosensei tries himself to explain that it wasn't her fault, and that she can't really blame herself for it because the truth was going to come out one way or another, and that they would have eventually had to address it, but is cut off when the Reaper knocks him into a pit. At which point the Reaper proceeds to attack Kaede, but due to the fact that she had tentacles at one point, and as Yanagisawa explains, her ability to keep up with the Reaper is limited, but at the very least she can see his attacks coming from a mile away and is able to dodge them. At which point she proceeds to leap up his tentacles and try to go in for a killing blow, but is impaled by one of the Reaper's tentacles and collapses, and is fatally wounded as a result. At which point Korosensei proceeds to cuddle her body, realizing that she and Yanagisawa gloats that she's dead, and that it seems to be a fitting ends for the Yukimura family, pointing out that he seems to have a habit for impaling girls, but also laments that he wasn't able to keep her around for a backup life. At which point Korosensei turns pitch black and starts radiating a bunch of energy, and everybody quickly realizes that he's pissed. And Yanagisawa even gloats that this is what he was waiting for all along, pointing out that that he always believed Korosensei to be a mindless killing machine, and now at long last he's finally showing that true potential. But does remark that it's too late because the Reaper is more than able to actually counteract it. And then proceeds to reveal that his arm is actually hollow and that he can actually hide syringes inside of them, and stabs the Reaper with what he remarks to be the Reaper's final attack. And it's unclear what he injects the Reaper with, but what it is clear is that it does cause the Reaper to go into Super Saiyan mode and become a lot stronger as a result. And then the Reaper prepares his own final attack, which Yanagisawa remarks that he will negate Korosensei's own attacks and kill him instantly. At which point the Reaper proceeds to go in for the final blow, but both Yanagisawa and the Reaper are completely surprised when Korosensei is revealed to be completely fine and is now generating a white light, even though his tentacles are black. But as the students quickly point out, he's not just black, he's starting to change into all the different colors that he's displayed over the past year. And at which point Korosensei reveals that his final last-ditch effort to defeat Yanagisawa and the Reaper is that he's going to actually use his one final attack, combining all of his emotions into a white light. At which point he tells the Reaper that he hopes that this final attack will enable the Reaper to finally graduate in peace, and fires off the blast, which not only sends the Reaper flying, but sends Yanagisawa flying as well. And Yanagisawa begins to panic because he realizes that he's about to hit the barrier, and gives Korosensei one last time before hitting the barrier, and is either then killed or permanently disabled, depending on what version of the story you're reading. In the anime, he dies. He's never heard from again. He hits the barrier and completely disintegrates, and we never see him after this. But in the manga, he actually does indeed survive, but is now completely under the care of the people he hates, which is a kind of a fitting end to his character, and also a little bit ironic, and it's a little bit of a shame that actually isn't translated into the anime at all. So yeah, he dies in the anime, but the manga is a much more fitting end to his character, and I do recommend reading the manga if you want to see how that ends, where he winds up being put in a hospice care because he's now permanently disabled, which is ironic because he kind of hated people like that. So yeah, so that's his ultimate fate in the manga. In the anime, he's dead. But in any case, the Reaper begins flying and starts being disintegrated and is just barely able to fight back against Korosensei, who charges in with an Ansei-sensei knife, which he wraps in a tissue so he can hold it, and proceeds to go in and finish off the Reaper. And as this whole sequence is playing out, we actually see one of the major interactions that they had between the two, which is that the Reaper showed at an early age an interest in flowers, and specifically that he left a bouquet around the house that Korosensei eventually noticed. And when Korosensei asked about it, the Reaper merely responded that he had prepared it, pointing out that it could be useful for assassinations. While Korosensei initially doesn't say anything, the Reaper immediately assumes that Korosensei hates it. But Korosensei merely responds that it'll be fine there. But he hopes that the Reaper will continue to study chemistry as well as setting up bouquets to actually lure people into false sense of security, because as he points out, at the moment the Reaper can barely kill a mosquito. So the Reaper beams at him. And Korosensei remarks in the back of his mind that if he had only acknowledged that smile, he could have changed his student's life for the better. But in any case, he then finishes off the Reaper and stabs him straight in the heart. And the Reaper then confesses as he's dying that the tentacles asked him what he wanted, and he merely responded that what he wanted was to be like Korosensei and to be acknowledged by him, and tells Korosensei that he's always wanted to be like him. But Korosensei merely responds that he already was, and he couldn't be more proud of him, and then tells the Reaper that if they meet together in the next life, they'll pick up where they left off. And with that, the Reaper then dies and disappears into a flash of light. So while Korosensei has now completely finished everybody off, nobody's celebrating because obviously Kaede is either dead or fatally wounded. So and everybody's quick to point out that she might be dead. And Nagisa, who actually picked up her body and has been cradling it this whole time to make sure that it's kept safe, tells her that they should lay her to rest and put her down. But Korosensei tells him not to do that, since he points out he doesn't want dirt getting into the wound. And then reveals the twist is that he actually picked up most of her blood and somatic cells to actually stitch up the wound again when she actually has an opportunity to do so. Revealing that he had actually been preparing this technique for a while, since after Aguri died, he realized he didn't want that to happen again in front of him. So he prepared a technique to make sure that nobody would actually die on his watch from the same exact wound. So, and reveals that he had actually prepared for such an occasion and cultivated his skills just in case that happened again. So, at which point he then proceeds to start stitching up Kaide's wound using cells and blood where he can't. And although he remarks where he can, but though he remarks that he actually wasn't able to actually pick up all of her cells and blood, so he fills up what few holes are left with mucus, and that in time her cells will grow back and fill in the holes, and she'll be back to her healthy self. And then with that he then places her down, and then reveals that he can actually and also asks Ryo Nakamura to actually bring him the cake, which the Reaper destroyed, pointing out that A, he needs it to replenish his energy since he's been fighting extensively this whole time, and B, he needs it. He actually couldn't stop thinking about it and just wants to try the cake. But even despite Ryo pointing out that it's been on the ground in the dirt for half an hour, but Korosensei doesn't care and then proceeds to wolf down the cakes by himself. At which point he then uses that replenished energy to create a defibrillator using his feelers, pointing out that though he didn't want to, that he's going to use it to restart her heart, and then admits that although he didn't want to admit it because it would sound a little bit crazy and monstrous, he admits that he actually did learn how to actually piece them, that he has actually been training to piece them all back together on the off chance that they get killed in front of him. Pointing out that he didn't bring it up because again he points out that it would feel a little bit monstrous and a little bit scary if he admitted that he could do that right out of the gate, but admits that now he's not ashamed to actually admit it, because as he points out, it acknowledges his skills as a teacher, because it means that he knows them as inside as well as out, which is kind of cheesy, but it is kind of fitting considering he literally pieced Kaede back together cell by cell. At which point Kaede wakes up and realizes that Korosensei saved her, and then acknowledges Korosensei and thanks him for putting her back together, as it were. And Korosensei really returns the favor by fixing her hair, pointing out that he would do it again if he had to. At which point all the other students dogpile on Kaede because long story short, she died and came back to life, and obviously everybody thought she was dead. So now they all dogpile on her to give her a big hug. At which point Korosensei proceeds to give an inner monologue about and thank Aguri for the gift of the past year and the gift of the students, pointing out and hopes beyond hope that he was worthy of it. So yeah, that's how this episode ends, with Korosensei killing his former student, but finally acknowledging finally doing what the Reaper wanted all from him all along, that he just wanted the Korosensei to be proud of him, and Korosensei finally gave him that as he was dying. So the Reaper died, and it's a very sad ending to their little story arc. But at long last, Korosensei does finally acknowledge him as his student, and finally acknowledges that what he wanted. So the Reaper was able to die in peace. So, and that's a fitting end for that. And also just reiterating, Yanagisawa was either dead or permanently disabled, depending on the version of the story you're reading or watching. So. Yeah, that's how this episode ends, with Korosensei finally defeating his final student. But in any case, that's the end of this episode. What do you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks and my way saying thanks. So be sure to check those out. Also, I stream every Sunday at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys want to check that out, go to Zack Twitch down in the description below. I'm going to be streaming this Sunday. I'm back on schedule now. So if you guys want to go see that, by all means, go do that. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So, if you want to see more of what you like, or try something completely different, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But, regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!